Thank you for joining us for the third instalment of the Experience Experts Conversation series. I'm Katarina Brandt, Director of Kat&Co. And, at the very beginning of COVID and, with the impact on our industry and, working together with the team, we decided to create this online series of in-depth conversations with thought leaders and culture setters to inspire and to challenge the way that we experience. We really want to share ideas, and we want to ignite creativity amongst our clients, our collaborators, and our friends, and to ultimately build hope and a sense of optimism for the future in everything that we're going through right now. So today the series goes global as we invite a friend from afar, renowned architect of taste and food futurist, Sam Bompas of UK creative studio Bompas and Pa. Sam will share his insights on the new culinary experience. We'll explore how our current circumstances will influence the way in which we concept, we create, and we experience food, and how culinary experiences will innovate and evolve for the future. Kat&Co and Bompas and Pa share a passion for delivering multisensory and emotionally compelling experiences. And in Bompas and Pa's words, we also share a commitment to offering an optimistic view on the future as we shift perspectives from freely flowing behaviours of the world without coronavirus to a world that has forcibly embraced fresh routines. This shared creativity and optimism has led to today's conversation. So I'm thrilled to introduce Sam Bompas, the co-founder and creative director of Bompas and Pa. Now, Sam spends his time developing food and beverage concepts that are universally appealing and experientially compelling and highly Instagrammable. Over the years, Sam has cultivated an extensive network from historians to chemists, microbiologists, artists, musicians, professional nosers, as he says, inventors, stage illusionists, and pyrotechnicians who collaborate with his team to create genuine world firsts, such as cooking with lava, creating glow-in-the-dark ice cream, and a fireworks show where you can taste the fireworks as they explode above your head. Sam Bompas, together with co-founder Harry Pa, they first came to prominence through their expertise in jelly making. Their food fame rapidly grew, and today they are a fully fledged creative studio offering out-of-this-world food and drink design. So, hey Sam, good morning.
Hello, good morning to you. How are you?
I'm really well. Thank you so much for joining us all today. Before we kick things off, for all of those joining us, I just wanted to say if you've got any questions, send them through, and Sam and I will dive into them at the end of today's conversation. So Sam, you and Harry share this very unique passion that's born an innovative food experience studio that you have. And imagine so many out of this world food concepts, as I mentioned, from cooking with lava to creating the world's biggest cake, and so many other incredible things. Can you tell us a bit about how your passion for food and that journey to reach, so many people, where did that come from?
I think, Harry and I very often asked about seminal moments in terms of food and drink that spurred it all. And actually, I guess the truth is, to start off with, we're just really old friends, known each other since we've been 13. I don't think we're particularly interested in food when we first met each other. We're in the same orchestra. It was like the sort of really terrible orchestra if your parents paid for some music lessons, and it's the third tier orchestra, and we'd sit at the back and we're both in string section, trying to get our bows going in the same direction. But if it's anything, for me, I think the most exciting moment my childhood that really lent us to where we are now was going to medieval times. And so medieval times, if you don't know, it's you sit down and you have pretty average food. It's sort of chicken of the castle. It's just very normal chicken. Coca-Cola in tankards. But then there's this great spectacle. You're in basically a giant shed with crenellations on it, and you're given a knight, and they joust and they battle in front of your very eyes, and their magic shows. And I just thought it was totally, totally enchanting. So quite often, we're not chefs. Harry trained as an architect. I worked in property marketing. And I guess for us, because we haven't been coming from a culinary training, which is it's really, really hard to do food well. A lot of what we spent our time doing is try to bring different disciplines into the realm of food and drink, just to be able to get on that level that food and drink professionals are operating at, and ultimately give people a great experience.
So like your glow in the dark food experiences that we're looking at right now?
Yeah, so there you go. So we can do any food that glows in the dark. Jellies, cocktails. This is a glow in the dark ramen restaurant that we developed up with some of our friends in Atlanta, and the zoo studio, and it toured around America. And the thing that was, um, I'm sorry, just getting a bit of an echo. It's still a bit distracting. I'll get over it. The thing that was amazing with it was, it looked lurid, it takes great photo, but actually it tastes delicious as well. And that for me was the most surprising and delightful thing.
Yeah. Can you also tell us a bit about, I guess, your love of jelly and how you've managed to reimagine that dessert classic? We've seen some really incredible images of that on Instagram from afar. Where did that come from?
So our voyage into the realms of food and drink started with the joy of jelly. So 13 years ago, myself and Harry wanted to do something delightful on the weekend. We thought that jelly held the key, and having a jelly company held the answer. We couldn't afford the sort of antique copper molds that we wanted. So here's one here. And so we decided to make our own using the same. So that's Kylie out of jelly, a Vegemite, and Foster's jelly. I don't know if that's a great idea.
We think it is.
But it was it was certainly provocative and got people's attention. But so what we were doing was using architectural techniques such as CAD modeling, 3D design, 3D printing, and Rhino. It's a program that's normally used to design trainers to design jellies. And then I've actually got one here as well, which is made specially. And the thing that's really delightful about jellies is a wonderful sort of old technology. You make a jelly and everyone smiles, but jellies weren't just seen on their own. When they're put on the table, they also have a mixture of jelly plus candlelight coming through it. I don't know if I can get the angles right.
Yeah.
There you go. But it sort of becomes this sort of pouring wax all over my floor. In an era before television, it was rather mesmerizing, and it still holds that power to enchant.
And tell me, what flavors have you got there?
I think that was a Prosecco Violet and elderflower.
Wow, how delicious. Just seeing from that, you've got some incredibly, I guess, provocative ideas that come through with the food experiences you create, and an incredible colourful portfolio. Can you share with us some more of the most memorable experiences you've created?
Well, for me, it's normally the most recent one where you've lived through all the drama and the teamwork to get it up. I think you've got some pictures there of us cooking with lava. So there's Harry some steaks. Found some professors in Syracuse in upstate New York, and they melt down 1.1 billion year old basalt before degassing it, and they do that to research. It's the only place you can use lab-like conditions to research lava. That's an overclocked copper smelter. And then we went along and we cooked with it and served it up for all the folks on the campus. And I think this is just a test. This is just an exploration of what would be possible, because the ambition is to turn this into a sort of 500-person event where the lava's coming out. It's making a piece of mega furniture, and it's almost like doing yakitori on the table. So you're putting your sticks in, you're able to cook for yourself, all mediated spatially with safe design practices. So I think that's something we can talk about in a little bit as well. But it's just a test. It was filmed by an 11-year-old kid. I was snapping the photos, and that, you know, that went around the world in terms of coverage. Never got to make the big bit of furniture. It does tend to be quite expensive to ship copper smelters around the world, and the gas lines you have into them are like that. So there's a lot of gas going into it.
And now you
But
know that
one
bit of
day,
information, right? Now you know.
we do know a lot about it. It turns out the assistant to the professor was the son of the dean of the campus, so she was signing off their gas bill to melt down the basaltic rock.
Um,
But,
and then tell me that is that an organ behind you?
yes, I should say I'm not at home at the moment. I am in our studio. You've got a 6.5 meter tall whiskey organ, and that uses cross-modal sensory interference to change your perception of taste as you're having a whiskey. So I've got a coffee at the moment. Coffee's got about 800 distinct flavors. Whiskey's got about 600 distinct flavors, and you can dial up and dial down those flavors, which is exactly what's happening if you do a tasting. But what this does is through sound and vision, which your sense of taste is very at the mercy of. It directs your palate around a glass of whiskey. It's also got a hidden bar and a pipe. One of the pipes, one of the 800 pipes behind us, is filled with whiskey, and it's got a little tap on the back as well.
And how convenient to have that in your workspace.
It's great. Well, and the best thing is we get all sorts of people coming through here, and I can't play keys, but had the Scion of the Hippodrome family, so it's a very old variety theatre, and of course they're playing variety show organs. So sometimes when we have a meeting, when we get back to having meetings, now it's just me having candlelit webinars by myself. But when we get back to having meetings, then sometimes you get a concert as well.
Yeah. I also want to talk a bit about how innovation and creativity plays a role in times that challenge us. It's obviously a really challenging time that we're globally working through right now. What do you believe the role of innovation and creativity has during times like this?
Well, I think for creativity you need a lot of things, but one of the things you need borders and constraints, and we really found that out personally when we were starting out. And when we're starting out, we had zero budget, and so it leads you to come up with some ingenious solutions when you have very limited funds at all. And people would say, "Why have you done it like this? This is brilliant. How do you come up with these ideas?" And the answer is rather unromantically, it's all you can afford. But you've seen historically at very difficult times, it leading to some remarkable ideas being happened. So in 1816, I think it was the year with no summer, Byron and Percy Shelley and Mary Shelley were stuck in a dark. They went to Switzerland to go see the mountains, but they were stuck inside because it was so dark, because there's Mount Tamaloa erupted, so it darkened the heavens. And so to pass the time, I think boredom plays a key as well, which, as we've all been inside for a long time, maybe we've experienced. They would write stories to tell each other, and that's when Mary Shelley penned Frankenstein to win a competition to pen a story. So hopefully this can be a new era of ingenious solutions. Of course, the flip side, there are a lot of people having a very tough time, but I think the key is to keep on plugging away, and that's certainly the attitude we've taken at Bompas and Par.
Yeah, definitely, as have we. Tell me a little bit more about what drives you creatively.
Oh my God, well, I've been just looking at your bookshelf, so I think you've got one of my favorite ever books behind you. It's the Dinners de Gala. The gold spine, I think that is Salvador Dali wrote a book in collaboration with the 5 top French restaurants, including Tour d'Argent, which is just remarkable, best wine list ever. And Yeah, that actually I think was our secret weapon for a time, because it's just got these like lurid, extravagant photographs with dishes like bush of crayfish with Viking herbs. Viking herbs tends to be dill. So we've got a very, very extensive library in the studio, and it's a lot of what we do is trying to take. So the back section is about food and drink, and then at the sides it has lots of different disciplines. So it's like drink, dancing, death. I was going to say depravity. There's no depravity. There is a lust. Architecture, world fairs, magical herbs, which you can see all in there. And then it's drawing a lot of these practices together. So, and then we also have a lot of workshop space as well. So there we do some experimenting, we do prototyping, we do making modeling. I'm trying forever to get people away from their computers. I mean, just casting about the internet you're not going to discover something new. You're going to discover something that's already been done by someone else. And then we've obviously got kitchen space as well. So we've got an R&D kitchen where we do a lot of development. So yeah, we just had yesterday we launched a new exhibition at and this is the office itself, which yeah, some people like, some people don't. Some people want it to look like a wee workspace, but personally, that for me is not an arena for creative endeavor. I quite like sort of creative chaos, and through orchestrating the physical space and the people and the ideas, apprehending ideas at oblique angles to create something that's new.
Well, so much of what we do is about the tactility of an experience, right? So sharing and creating in an environment that, is creative in every way is really, I guess, it's key.
Yeah, like and being able to change and modify your environment and not make it perfect. I know, like minimalism so boring, isn't it? I hope we just don't move into an era of very sterile environments, which there's a danger we do, because a lot of modernism came out of the 1918 pandemic. But we're just coming to terms with the sort of like maximalism of aesthetic in London, with some of the sort of like very extravagant fit outs, places like Annabelle's, Amazonica, which I personally think is a bit terrible, but it's very popular. but I really do hope that exuberance continues, and I think it can be a source of radical optimism and entertainment at a time when many people have seen the inside of 2 rooms, perhaps.
Yeah, that's right. There's now, like, as we've seen more than ever, a desire to kind of predict what the future may hold, right? So we're still figuring things out as we work through this pandemic. With your knowledge and insights into how humans experience food and taste, what do you think the impact will be on our current circumstances will have on, as you say, the way in which we feed our minds and our stomachs?
Well, I think there's no one singular narrative through it, and I think you see that because even now, for a lot of people I know, even just amongst my friends, there's massive differences in the way that in people's level of comfort with other people in public space, and so it means there are like multiple strategies in order to do that. So some people might be very hesitant about returning to the public realm. Others are just waiting to embrace sharing, touching, and I think as professionals who are there to mediate those spaces, to create those spaces and design those spaces, it's really up to us to design so that all those people can be serviced in the right way, or go really specific one way or the other, and look for an option. I know we just opened yesterday at the Design Museum in the UK an exhibition on the future of sanitizer pump design, which came about, and we really started it. I guess perhaps in almost as a parody, we spend so much time working for people like Pernod Ricard, Diageo, designing rituals around food and drink. And, it's very, very clear as we went into lockdown that there were going to be a whole host of new rituals. And, we're really worried about our industry. Our business is about people coming together in public spaces to do something joyful and put a smile on their faces. If they can't feel safe in doing that, if they aren't safe in doing that, then that's a challenge. So we sort of put this together because as a way to engage many creative people who we knew around the world wanted to help, wanted to do something, had a terrific amount of energy and bright ideas, but didn't necessarily have the channel for it. So we got 180 entries. They're all up online at Fountain of Hygiene. We also installed a giant tongue fountain in the middle of the Design Museum, which is this great architectural space. This tongue fountain is very human, it's bodily, it's animalistic, it's this sort of great pine cone of tongues dripping over, which I think is really important. The director of the Design Museum hadn't signed that bit of the exhibition off, and yesterday was made to do all of their interviews in front of it. But I think it's important because I think quite often design, albeit which should always be about the human, it's always about that human scale, sometimes forgets it. So you look on architects' website, where are the people on the website? How are they using the space? You look on designers' websites and they show you the products. They don't show you the products in use. So you'll have like the design of the chocolate bar, it's not being eaten. The design of the bottle, it's that beauty packaging shot. It's not being poured, it's not being shared, it's not being passed. And as a consequence, does sometimes, there's so much focus on the object or the space that the people are hidden. I think one of the things that's going to be really important is designing very humanely and designing with people in mind.
Mm. And then tell me, what do you think, I guess things that we've really become accustomed to, like, the populist canapé that we, share around at events and a shared banquet. How do you think those things are going to be impacted when we're looking to COVID safe practices and, physical distancing and, all of those things now?
Well, I think the way, do you want, this is a question for you, do you want more canapés?
Well, I definitely think all of these things need to be reimagined now to pushing things beyond what I guess has both function, but I guess diving deeper into really what is the purpose of that and how can we push that experience so that we I guess aren't defining these experiences by these restrictions and making sure that they're still really innovative and creative and good and bringing that energy to it without while still making sure it's safe, right?
Yeah, and I got to say, if I never had another canapé in my life, I'd probably be totally fine with that. There's about one canapé in the world that's good, and that's like mini sausages. The rest, sometimes they're okay. Vol au vents are nice. They're quite unfashionable. But I think food changes radically all the time. I'm here in Britain. 20 years ago, it was a food wasteland. It was like absolutely terrible. Now London and other places in the UK are getting a reputation, or have earned a reputation for doing really, really interesting food. The thing that's exciting is now people have been forced into their own resources to cook a lot. I don't cook at home at all. I love eating out. I love the rituals of it. I've obviously spent months now cooking. I think what that does mean is that people understand two things. One is how to make good food because they've had the time to do it. So it means that professionals may need to raise their game. Like restaurants need to actually deliver something really spectacular. And we've seen before, even before COVID, the demise of fast casual dining with a lot of big chains losing out. Why would you want to go spend £20 a throw to eat something mediocre when you can have something that's had like love and generosity and spirit put into it? At the same time as well, I hope that with all that cooking, people understand just how much hard work goes into making really, really good food, how much care, how much attention. I don't know, in my studio, we have lots and lots of different sorts of professionals. We've got architects, we've got chefs, we've got designers, we've got producers. And it's one of those ones where if you speak to any one of them, they all think that they're working hardest. And they're all working terrifically hard. So one of the things that we try and spend a lot of time doing is unpacking their disciplines for one another, just so that they can understand and sympathize with what they're doing. I think we started doing some building outside, and there's sanding. I'm gonna move so it doesn't distract.
Take us somewhere else in your studio.
We'll go somewhere else.
And no doubt there'll be a whole lot of other creations hanging around.
And I was going to say, just on that point, because I think it's so interesting about, you know, how things change. What does, you know, what's going to be good, what's going to be bad, and you know, there's been I've seen a lot of disposables being used, which is you know, at a time when pre-COVID, the main thing on the global agenda was sustainability. And suddenly we're just creating all of these disposables. Is it the right way? But food changes all the time. As you know, with the advent of forks and cutlery, which were very rare, if you went to dinner at someone's house, you bring your own cutlery. Could you see that coming back? Who knows?
Well, it certainly could, that's for sure. I mean, we do need to continue to make sure and sustainability to remain at the forefront of what we do, especially in our industry, because it's so easy to default to using disposable things, which understandably has a place right now with you know, different things that we're dealing with. But as soon as we can make sure that that remains a focus, I think it's so important in what we do.
Yeah, that's crucial.
Yeah. Also, just in terms of, I guess, the way in which we design multisensory experiences, you know, what do you think are the key considerations? You've touched on it already, from a taste point of view and the visuals, the details, the presentation. You know, as we're looking to, as we've discussed, create culinary experiences, like, you know, we still want to innovate and make sure it's dynamic, comforting, evocative, all of those things. How do we make sure that that stays at the forefront of what we do while being practical and safe and doing all of these other things that are so necessary right now?
Well, we're often asked about hierarchy of the senses in terms of designing, and you know, did a whole piece yesterday with Soho magazine on multi-sensory design, and I think the purpose is anyone working within restaurants, events, experiences, if they're working at the top of the game, they always design for all the senses. They might not do it. They might do it very intuitively, but everyone now, doesn't matter where you're sitting in front of a screen, you are having a multi-sensory experience. You can be aware of the touch, the feel of the chair beneath you, texture of the clothes you're wearing. Obviously, sight and sound play are key because it's a major medium that is distributed. If you bothered, there'd be a smell around. Like, love the ideas of smell-o-vision, but it's always very, very inherent. I think one of the things that is crucial is we're really foregrounding many of the things that we as people working in the industry are doing anyway. So before you go to any event, there's been a risk assessment done. It's all risk assessed. When the kitchen staff come in, the first thing they do, you hope, before they start cooking your meal, is wash their hands. Now we're teasing out some of those stories. You know, if I went to a restaurant 4 months ago and the wait staff came up to me and they told me about their hygiene practices, I'd be alarmed and amazed and frankly pretty disgusted. You think that they'd be doing that just as their due diligence. I think now most of those restaurants have you know, great big bits of signage when you go out telling you exactly what you're going to experience. I think one of the things that we've enshrined in our practice is before we start doing any creative work, we write a design risk assessment first. So right at the start of our creative process, before we even come up with the idea, we look at the risks, and then we use the risks to shape the best creative solution, rather than seeing as something at the end that you do to mitigate it. And it means that then you can design out as many risks as possible through physical intervention. I think we didn't totally see it. We saw a picture of a guy in PPE right at the front, and that was when we filled a building with 4 tons of cognac-based punch that people boated across before having a drink of it. Now, you can imagine the risks associated with that. It's almost like someone is boating across your drink that you're going to have before you do it. What could happen? So with that, we realized that PPE could be terrific fun. People were suiting up, they're putting on masks, they're putting on hairnets. We treated the whole thing as a food safe environment. So you went through the same process as you would were you going into an industrial food production unit. And that became part of the story. People loved that sense of ritual, that sense of dressing up. Then it was novel, putting on a load of masks and hairnets and things. Now, perhaps not. It's become more of a mundane chore for people. But there are opportunities when you start getting into, how can we do this? How can we do it in an engaging and delightful way?
So embracing these new risks as part of the creative process, right? And finding new ways to work through that.
Yeah, it's just that I don't find it a limit. I mean, so if people, and we're working on a project now, which involves designing a table where you can come with whatever group that you're comfortable with. And I don't know, I normally meet scores and scores of people. My social circle, though digitally very large, has been physically very limited. I want to see more people. So we're designing a table that's a revolve on top of another revolve that works in the other way. You come into a booth and something happens every 5 minutes. Time's been being really weird before, right now, because you're sort of stuck in the same environment. How do you create a dynamic, moving, engaging, lively space? And so with this, the revolve moves, you're sat at table, and every 5 minutes, a new group of people arrives in front of you. The table design means that everyone's totally safe, everyone's separated. It's a super hygienic environment. But it's different. Now, we wouldn't design this pre-pandemic. It's absurd. But now it makes sense. But there'll be a closing window for that sort of thing as well. One would hope.
But right now, that's responding to people's desire to reconnect and become social again, right?
Yeah, exactly. So some people want to go out, want to meet people. This provides a forum for it. I think one of the things that we're going to see long term with the pandemic, obviously, is the massive financial impact, which is just going to exacerbate differences within society and distributions of wealth. And I'm fascinated by how can otherness, how can finding groups of people, bring groups of people together is one of the most joyful things we can do. How can you do that in such a way that doesn't create otherness and show elitist tendencies? I think there's hope with food. Food's a really good thing that we can agree on that brings people together. And I love projects like Conflict Kitchen that takes the cuisines of project in the US, takes cuisines of countries the US is at war with, and then presents it to people as a mode to direct conversation and understanding.
And to strip away all of those things that can, I guess, impact the way we think about things. Whereas food, like you said, it's the common thread in many ways.
Absolutely.
Creatives and artists, they're often known for a signature thing or a point of view that makes them instantly recognizable. How would you describe the San Bompas signature that runs through your work?
Well, I think jelly to start with.
Yeah.
The good thing is you're always going to put a jelly on the menu somewhere, so it's one less course and one less dish you got to think about in the creative process, and there's still a joy in that. Also love pineapples. So there's been a whole sort of pineapple thread, and part of that is pineapples sit at the link between architecture and it was very, for a long time, a symbol of welcome in architecture. You can see it on the finials of lots of buildings. At the top of St. Paul's Cathedral, there's two golden pineapples. A sense of maximalism is really important. So lots of patterns everywhere. Research, but then the most important thing is you talked about artists. We deliberately don't call ourselves artists, even though sometimes we work within the art world. And I think the artist challenge with art is there's often a lot of regard for the object or the finished work or how the artist wants to see it, even if the artist says, no, it's okay, you can have our own opinion. We're coming from food and drink. And the only important thing in the realm of food and drink is how the customer or the diner feels at the end of it, if they're smiling, if they're happy, if they've had a great time. It's also interesting as well, because it means that a lot of, if you have people coming from the theatre world, sometimes they'll work with emotions like fear or disgust or horror, which can be interesting to us. Or, if you're watching films, those are all things that might be interesting things to experience. It's part of the human condition. Those are things you rarely want to experience in the context of food and drink. Yeah. So it does mean it pushes you. Food and drink pushes you to trying to do things that are joyful and celebratory and universally quite positive.
Well, your jellies are definitely joyful, that's for sure. I know you.
I'm curious. Like, how would you describe? Because your work is just absolutely gorgeous. It's so beautiful. And what would you describe as a signature note
to what we do? I think that for us, and I know you touched on before about wanting that kind of decadence experience to come back. And within our team, creatively, we have that kind of, I guess, balance between wanting to have a degree of restraint so that a moment has got a bit of air to be able to really experience it. But then at the same time, sometimes more can be more, and really creating many layers and a richness of experience can also really connect with people in incredibly meaningful ways. So yeah, I think that we definitely really balance those two aspects of a creative journey, just to make sure that yeah, guests, customers, whoever it may be that's coming into our environments, have that right balance to be able to take it all in.
Oh, it looks sensational. I hope I get to come to one of your projects one day.
I certainly hope so too, and I know we've already touched on collaborating together, and yeah, let's make that happen at some stage. I also want to ask a bit more about the British Museum of Food that you had such a huge part in bringing to life.
So the British Museum of Food is an ongoing project. It won't be completed in our lifetime, and it comes as a direct, I guess a direct response to Fernandria's exhibition. And so Fernandria, the world's best chef for a very long time, absolute sort of peak of sort of culinary attainment, and then as he stepped down from El Bulli, he started writing this thing called Bullipedia, which is supposed to be the Wikipedia of food. But really it was just enshrining the work that he had discovered. And then he started making a foundation, which is a food museum, but it's all just about his food. And food is a narrative that's always evolving. What we're eating now, what we will be eating over the next year will be very different from what we ate last year. And so to ossify it, to solidify it like that, I think is totally absurd. It's just a real concern for legacy. It's the twilight of someone's career. So we thought, well, what the thing that would be interesting to do would be to found an institution that in 200 years' time is still relevant, is still useful. No one knows how it started, where it started, a bit like the Royal Academy or the British Museum, the V&A. I know how those institutions were started because I'm a sort of total museum and history geek and do a lot of research. But it doesn't matter. They're useful tools, and they're also helpful in terms of like not just delivering an interesting cultural experience, but also supporting the sorts of scientists and researchers that can influence education and politics. And so, you have things like, in this country, you have like Jamie Oliver campaigning about school dinners. Now, in order to help children eat well, it's not, that campaign lasts as long as he's got a TV show.
Yeah.
Then it goes on to the next project. So these are really complex, important, difficult subjects. You need a very concerted, long-term strategy that evolves in relationship to what's happening then. Politics, not a TV show to resolve it. So a museum project becomes a good vehicle for that, because you can use the museum structure to support the staff to engage on that. So we're just at the early days now. We've only done a couple shows. The second and biggest was Scoop, is all about the history of ice cream. And so we work with Caroline and Robin Weir. They're like these brilliant ice cream collectors. They've got a collection of 14,000 ice cream objects. And we exhibited that, but then also brought a lot of display as well. So yeah, it's completely delightful. Now we're looking to Australia for inspiration, as well as the next show is going to be all about caffeine.
About what? Sorry, what was that?
About caffeine.
About caffeine. Okay. Well, we love our coffee here.
If anyone's defined coffee culture over the last decade, it's definitely Australia.
Yeah, we love our coffee. I also just want to touch on, I guess, the way in which the current global circumstances has impacted, we discussed it with human behaviour, but especially the way people are returning to core values. Like they're wanting to connect with in more meaningful ways, and really stand up for something and show what they believe in. We've all seen that over social media over the last month, really, and no doubt it will continue to happen. How do you think this will impact the creative process in how we design and collaborate with each other in the future?
Well, I mean, we work a lot as marketeers, and I think a lot of marketeers at the moment are very stuck because of a lot of the issues like Black Lives Matter, and they're very hesitant about putting creative work out there or putting their head above the parapet for fear of saying the wrong thing. Now, if you have like good values at the core of what you do, that's a really good, brilliant starting point. And I think now more than ever, it's essential to have those central values. That doesn't necessarily mean you need to be responding to every pressure group or protest group or movement. But I think what we'll find as well is movements like Black Lives Matter, it comes in a chain of, before that we had a lot of global concerns about the Me Too movement, and similar protests, well, not similar protests, very different protests, but other protests about sustainability. So these issues are really about social difference, which will be exacerbated by what's happening in society. They will continue, and they will become louder as well. So the only way you can really ready yourself for that is making sure that within your practice, you're confident that you believe what you say. Now, the other thing as well is there's been a lot of talk of marketeers working with purpose all the time. I think that distracts from their main job, which is to sell things for clients, and that's okay. so I think there's been a lot of commoditization of some of these identities and interests, and I think it's very, very transparent, and I think consumers are well aware of it. So yeah, so it's a whole nest of different things in there.
Definitely.
But be a good person. That's the main. That's the main. But at the same time, it's okay just to be a good person and try to sell stuff and be creative with it.
Definitely, and I think which is what we ultimately always want to do is be able to share what our clients, brand story is, which ultimately is a reflection on what their values are as well, and the ultimate commercial goal that comes alongside that as well. Look, we've spoken about so many different things today, and you've shared so many insights around what the new culinary experience may be. Do you have any final thoughts that you can share with us on as a food futurist, on what we can expect to lie ahead?
Well, I think for me, I'm very, very optimistic about what's coming next. Yeah, I spend a lot of time on the phone with people in different countries and learning about what they're going through. So I've been chatting to lots of people in Melbourne who have obviously gone down to another wave of lockdown. And you see you get this sort of like global temperature reading of optimism, pessimism. For myself, very, very hopeful. I mean, I really saw the last decade in the UK as being a sort of golden age of food and drink. There's been a lot of investment, there's been a lot of creativity, there's been a lot of hard work. And as a consequence, as a Londoner, been able to eat better than ever before in my life. My hope is that while you might not have the ready capital going into food and drink, which I think distorts the experience, because you've got these restaurants with multi-million-pound fit out that, they're not going to pay for that for years and years and years. But so it means that your meal is effectively subsidized by venture capital, which is really weird. While I think that will come to an end, I think there's the opportunity to really look at the food and drink experience and come up with new forms of it, rather than just going through. I never want to have a 14-course tasting menu again in my entire life. Totally happy never to have that. And it's quite nice sometimes to have the new forms of much more frictionless dining that we're looking at. Yeah. So yeah, hopefully we'll get even more options on our plate as a consequence.
That sounds exciting. We're now going to dive into some of the questions that have come through. So kicking this off, hand sanitizing competitions. You were quick to react with the design competition, and it looked like you received a lot of traction across the globe. Did you see any new design innovations come through on how we can integrate this new social practice in a more palatable way? That's your first question.
I mean, yeah, have a look. There are different things that will at the fountainofhygiene.com. There's a huge swathe of new inventions there, new designs. Some of them are now moving to production as well, which is really exciting. I quite like one called Ding Dong, which is a doorbell that as you press the doorbell, squirts sanitizer all over you. There's a lot there that's aimed at getting kids to engage with it. So one of the other designs is almost like a paintbrush, and it's paint your hands clean. So it feels like a very playful process with your kids of getting them to hand sanitize. But I think that the main point with it is just the sort of radical creativity, the variety of different responses, all the sort of raw ideas there. And if there's someone here listening as well who's who has the ability to take some of these ideas to production, a lot of these are designers who in many cases are young designers. They've got the ideas, they've got the creativity. They might not know about taking it to market, so there's an opportunity there to partner with some of them. And if you send us an email, we'll just put you straight in touch with them. So which we're really trying to, we're trying to present a forum in which these ideas get taken to be made, which is exciting.
Well, I know there's a lot of fellow creatives watching today, so you'll no doubt hear from some of them. Another question is, if you could design a jelly mold or creation for anyone, past or present, who would that be and why?
Oh my gosh. I know have a lot of heroes. A lot of them are mainly dead at the moment. But people like Alexis Soyer, So he radicalized food and drink. He was the sort of swashbuckling equivalent, I guess, of Jamie Oliver, but very, very innovative. So he invented gas cookery in the mid 19th century. Before him and before gas cookery, the life expectancy of chefs was about to age 40 because the coal fires killed them through their lungs. So he reinvented the kitchen with gas cookery, and he was this great showman as well. So he'd make a magic stove that you could cook on quite easily. But to present gas cookery, he'd tour the country and he would say, "Bring me your greatest oxen." And the greatest oxen would roll up, and he would have the local blacksmith build a vast gas cooker. And then his show trick was to cook the largest oxen in whatever village he was in one go, thereby proving how effective it was, as well as being much better for cooking professionals' health.
So definitely for him. Another question is, what's your favorite restaurant in the world to go to?
Favorite restaurant is still got to be St. John, and it's, you're eating there with a paper tablecloth. They've not really bothered with the decor apart from painting it white. The food is relatively simple, but everything is just perfect. And the service staff, the front of house staff, are actually kind of a bit rude, but also they're fucking awesome as well. It's I think there've been times where I ate there every day for a week, which is excessive and expensive. I had a lot of client entertaining to do as well at the time, but it's just totally delightful. It never fails. And I think also as we, every year, I think you see the significance of the work they did 20 years ago have more and more resonance and more weight. So yeah, definitely St. John.
I must visit it one day, that's for sure. I want to. I'm mindful of time because we are approaching the hour. So we like to finish off this conversations with what we call the Fast Five. 5 questions. First thing that comes to your mind.
Right.
What would be your dream project if you could do anything?
Got so many. Trying to get the Revolve built at the moment.
Fair, that's a good one.
I'm trying to weaponize rainbows at the moment as well.
You're trying to
weaponize rainbows as well.
You've got to
make rainbow cannons so that I think the police are armed wrong. It exacerbates conflict, and I think there's a creative solution to de-escalate conflict.
Now I understand where you're going with that.
No one's when there's water. Sorry. Go.
Who or what has been the greatest influence in your life?
Harry Parr, probably. I mean, spent a lot of time with the man.
If you could be anywhere in the world right now, escaping the 4 walls around you, where would that be?
Climb a volcano that's erupting.
That's erupting. Well, then I won't ask why. What is your most treasured experience?
God, it's probably an experience you turned up and there's nothing leaking or nothing that needs to be fixed. We don't have to get some gaffer tape out, a black bin bag, and some spanners to go behind scenes. Probably for us, it was building Beyond the Waterfall, which was a merman mixologist staffed bar that you boat through a waterfall to get into.
All right, so I'm going to make this 6 questions today because I want to know one more thing. If you could invite anyone to a dinner party, 5 people, who would they be?
Okay, Edward Bernays, godfather of modern publicity. Not a good person, but an interesting person. As I said, Alexis Soyer. Really like to meet John Waters as well. So I managed to get his address and send him weird notes every so often. His Pope of Filth he's so funny, so entertaining. Ivan Day is, you should go on his website. It's called historicfood.com. He is just this lexicon about how he's like the Indiana Jones of the culinary world. He goes and he discovers how he eat. And Peter Langan, he's a roistering restaurateur of yesteryear. I think he spent most of the nights by about 9 o'clock on the floor in the front of house, passed out under a chair. And he wrote, I think, the best, I should get it, he wrote the best. So his restaurant was filled with great art. He got artists like David Hockney to pay for their meals with paintings. So the menus are Hockney's. And he wrote the best cookbook that was never completed, and it's just in note form, but it was finished off by one of the great art critics, Brian Sewell, who wrote a covering note, and then they published it. But it's just a wonderful half-finished scrap of a book. Very, very inspiring.
It sounds like a fun dinner party. And I know you spoke to this before, but I would like to finish this off with, what your hope for the future would be.
Well, I think again, the tabletop is an arena for wonderful conversation, wonderful understanding. There's so many narratives now where people find it very difficult to understand other people's point of view, and are very intolerant of other people's point of view. If someone's got a different opinion, and I'm in Britain, like everyone's got an opinion on Brexit, and one side won't speak to the other and thinks they're immediately total imbecile. I think there's a place for conversation, and I think the table provides that.
Definitely. Look, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. I know when we put it out there, you were quick to say, absolutely, you'd love to get involved with this. It's been really intriguing and exciting and interesting to hear your thoughts on what food and drink might look like as we navigate our way through this. I know we've discussed collaborating together on a project in the future, and I really hope that we get to do that at some stage soon. But until then, stay safe over there, and thank you again for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I can't wait for our collaboration.
It sounds great. Sounds great. Well, thank you to everyone else that has been watching today. Thank you for joining us. We'll be announcing soon who the next experience expert will be. So we'll keep you posted, and thanks again for joining us.